to suppress Christianity and to make Kenya into a terrorist safe haven. That's right, to make Kenya into a terrorist safe haven.
The President of the United States is guilty. Guilty of giving aid and comfort to our deadliest enemies. To terrorists who have already killed thousands of us. He is giving deadly weapons to Al-Qaeda. Weapons systems designed to shoot airplanes out of the sky.
Now that's after he becomes the 12th Imam.
12th Imam.
And are now cutting the heads off of babies and releasing the videos themselves. So this is the worst scum of the earth who is used as the threat to take our rights in America, and our scumbag government is funding these people. This is outrageous, and we've got to get the word out on it. That can stop this crime.
Got a hint thanks to an open mic and a cameraman who left his camera on. And Mr. Obama is seen talking to the Prime Minister of Russia and asking that a message be passed on to, as the Prime Minister called him, Vladimir. And he was glad to pass this message on that after the election, after he won the election, Mr. Obama would have more flexibility.
CBS journalist Katie Couric calling Christian values repugnant. Its goal, to overthrow God and silence Christian America for good. That according to author and political columnist S.E. Cupp, who warns the mainstream media is using its influence to wage war against the nation's Judeo-Christian heritage.
You are absolutely right that John McCain has not talked about my Muslim faith, and you're absolutely right.
Unbelievably, Barack Obama claims on his own website that he has never been a Muslim, while almost everybody outside the United States seems to know that Barack Obama is a Muslim still. And Barack Obama's own elementary school teacher tells us that Barack Obama took Mengaji classes. Mengaji classes are for only the most devout Muslim students. In these classes, children are required to recite the Quran from cover to cover in the original Arabic language with a perfect accent, hardly a task to be taken on by the casual Muslim.
Because a lot of people don't know that President Obama supported al-Qaeda to overthrow Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi. They don't know that it was Qatari and Lebanese and Syrian soldiers that killed Muammar Gaddafi and not Libyan rebels.
Is that why the elite and those Zionists such as George Soros, is that why they're funding all of these rioters and these protesters with the whole 2016 elections, which is just one great big joke to begin with? Is that why they're doing that? Very interesting and suspicious indeed. Then it goes on to say, to fight subversive activities, there was authorization for the military to implement government-ordered movements of civilian populations at state and regional levels, the arrest of certain unidentified segments of the population, and the imposition of martial law. Did you hear that? Have you looked up all the executive orders that your lovely presidents have signed into office, all of which are unconstitutional, by the way, because many of them say that your government has the so-called right to relocate you into FEMA camps or into detention centers, prison camps, come martial law, come during a state of emergency, which we've been seeing these past couple of days. Are you ready for this stuff? Are you ready to stand in that evil day? That is the question. Or are you lollygagging and thinking that this is all one big game and that this is all one big joke? I hope not. Now, what's also no surprise is how we're seeing the elite and the Zionists and how they're continuing to push for this big agenda and how they're trying to do all this stuff before Mr. Obama is supposed to leave office, because we know darn well that Mr. Obama is going nowhere. He's going to stay right where he is. The elections is just one great big sham if you already haven't figured it out.
No longer a Christian nation, or no longer a Christian nation.
Sheriff Joe Arpaio says he suspects President Obama's birth certificate is a fake.
We believe probable cause exists indicating that forgery and fraud may have been committed.
Arpaio says his team of volunteer investigators believes President Obama's birth certificate is computer generated. They say they have a person of interest that may be involved in that hoax.
So what is next? CBS 5's Heather Moore has been trying to get the answer to that question all night. Heather, what did you come up with?
Well, Catherine and Cena, the sheriff says maybe Congress...
Barack Obama's father is from the Luo tribe of Kenya, and he has a cousin there, unknown to most Americans, called Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga once attempted a Soviet-backed coup in Kenya to try to overthrow a U.S.-friendly Kenyan government. In 2006 and 2007, Barack Obama returned to Kenya to help his cousin Odinga become elected as the new president of Kenya. He did this as a U.S. Senator under the guise of a taxpayer-funded fact-finding trip. Barack Obama did not advertise this fact to the American people, nor did he advertise the fact that his cousin Odinga was trying to take over Kenya for Islam. His cousin Odinga had signed an agreement with Islamic factions in Kenya to get their support for the election. He promised them essentially that he would Islamify Kenya, to impose Sharia law, to suppress Christianity, and to make Kenya into a terrorist safe haven. That's right, to make Kenya into a terrorist safe haven. You may have noticed from the documents we showed you earlier that Barack Obama was raised in the religion of Islam. In other words, he was a Muslim. Who is this man who calls himself Barack Hussein Obama? What's his religion? His legal name in Indonesia is Barry Soetoro, as shown on this document, recorded at the school he attended. It would have been unlawful in Indonesia to record any but his full legal name on this document. So as far as we know, to this day, in Indonesia, Barry Soetoro remains his legal name. Barry, or Barack Hussein if you will, attended a Catholic school in Indonesia, which was required by law to instruct him in the religion of Islam.
4 tahun lalu, pengusaha batubara ini tak mau mengubah desain bangunan rumah tersebut. Kamar Barack Obama misalnya, tetap dibiarkan seperti semula. Obama pernah berpose di samping lemarinya itu.
Here is a close-up of the document we showed you earlier, from the school in which Barry, or Barack Hussein, was instructed in Islam. The law of Indonesia, unlike that of the United States, does not allow for dual citizenship. Therefore, we can see clearly from this document that Barry, or Barack Hussein, was only a citizen of Indonesia and not of the United States. Since Indonesia does not allow proselytizing from one religion to the next, we can also see that Barry was a member of the religion of Islam, and as such, would have been instructed in Islam by the school he attended. A birth certificate mysteriously appeared on the internet, attempting to impute United States citizenship status to Barry Soetoro, whom from now on we shall call Barack Hussein Obama. But upon close examination, we can see that this birth certificate, which was later copied to the official Barack Hussein Obama website, has no official stamp of the state of Hawaii, and therefore is not a valid birth certificate. Let's see the comparison once again. Once again, this is an example of a valid birth certificate, with an official stamped seal of the state of Hawaii and a correctly printed border, while this is the birth certificate presented on the Barack Obama website, which has no embossed seal and a clearly falsified border. In summary, the man calling himself Barack Hussein Obama has no real birth certificate issued by the United States, no evidence of a legal change of name, and no proof of legal repatriation to the United States if indeed he ever was a United States citizen. With regard to the question of religious affiliation, no baptismal certificate or evidence of a conversion to Christianity or to any other religion but Islam has ever been presented. So who is this man, who even as a boy and a citizen of the largely Muslim nation of Indonesia has always aspired to become President of the United States? His real name is Barry Soetoro. Also, according to all available religious documentation, Barry was and is a member of the religion of Islam, since Islam does not allow for conversion to any other religion. It seems fair to ask why this man, who seeks as commander-in-chief to control the most powerful military force in the world, the largest economy, and the largest nuclear arsenal in the world, has not been more forthcoming about his own identity. Who is the man who calls himself Barack Hussein Obama? Although his political career has been built on the life narrative of 2 autobiographies he supposedly wrote himself. These autobiographies are in fact partially works of fiction, full of omissions and diversions seemingly intended to conceal Obama's past. And beyond the books, those who have tried to carefully research Barack Obama's past have run into a chain of outright roadblocks. This pattern of concealment, diversions, and omissions has led some people to say that he's the most secretive presidential candidate ever. So let's start with what seem to be the most fundamental questions. What is his name, and where was he born? The answer? It depends on who you ask. Obama claims that he was born in Hawaii, but his grandmother and some siblings say he was born in Kenya, the land of his father. In an attempt to prove he was born in Hawaii, one of his official websites posted a birth certificate, which turned out to be a crude fake. We don't even have any baby pictures to show where he might have been born. In fact, it's not until his elementary school in Indonesia was searched that we found any real proof of anything on paper. And it turns out that there, his real name was Barry Soetoro. In fact, there has been so much concern over where Barack Obama was born that at least 4 lawsuits have been filed to try to get to the bottom of the matter, and Barack Obama has not helped by producing any valid birth certificate. By the way, according to the United States Constitution, one has to be a natural-born citizen of the United States in order to actually become president. When Barack Obama became a lawyer in the United States, he actually concealed his previously used identities that we've referred to earlier. To our knowledge, why he did this has never been satisfactorily explained. You may have noticed from the documents we showed you earlier that Barack Obama was raised in the religion of Islam. In other words, he was a Muslim. Perhaps because of this, Obama has gone to great lengths to portray the American side of his family, in other words, his mother and his grandparents on his mother's side, as religiously very normal. The truth, however, is quite different. Obama's grandparents appear to have traveled halfway across the country in order to attend a very unusual church. This church was nicknamed the Little Red Church by the neighboring churches because of this particular church's support for Red Communist China at a time of high tensions in the Cold War. This church does not appear to make mention of Jesus anywhere, and they take pride in not having what they call Christian bias. But stranger even than that, this church has listed itself in the Witches of the World directory under a listing of covens. If you don't know what a coven is, look it up. There, they proudly proclaim that their congregation is full of Wiccan and pagan families. Barack Obama's mother may have actually brought him back to this congregation from Hawaii. Unbelievably, Barack Obama claims on his own website that he has never been a Muslim, while almost everybody outside the United States seems to know that Barack Obama is a Muslim still. And Barack Obama's own elementary school teacher tells us that Barack Obama took Mengaji classes. Mengaji classes are for only the most devout Muslim students. In these classes, children are required to recite the Quran from cover to cover in the original Arabic language with a perfect accent, hardly a task to be taken on by the casual Muslim.
You are absolutely right that John McCain has not talked about my Muslim faith, and you're absolutely right that
We heard before that Barack Obama covered up his previous identities on his attorney's application to the state of Illinois. But what else didn't Barack Obama tell us? Well, for starters, his entry into the prestigious position of Harvard Law Review was promoted and funded by a man named Khalid Al-Mansour. This is according to the testimony of renowned attorney Percy Sutton. But who is Khalid Al-Mansour? He's an Islamic supremacist and employee of one of the world's richest men, Prince Al-Walid. Mansour used to be called Donald Warden when he helped out the Black Panthers. In fact, his office in the Bay Area was right next door to the Black Panthers office. The Black Panthers were a violent black nationalist group active in the late 60s and early 70s, and the Black Panthers have been reformed in order to support Barack Obama's campaign. Barack Obama was a member of an American Socialist Party called the New Party. Upon this discovery, Barack Obama went through what is now the usual series of tactics to try to deny and then to try to distance himself from the facts as they were discovered. As each of the denials and diversions was met with incontrovertible evidence, Barack Obama finally attempted to claim that the new party was not after all socialist. But of course, it is. Barack Obama's father is from the Luo tribe of Kenya, and he has a cousin there, unknown to most Americans, called Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga once attempted a Soviet-backed coup in Kenya to try to overthrow a U.S.-friendly Kenyan government. In 2006 and 2007, Barack Obama returned to Kenya to help his cousin Odinga become elected as the new president of Kenya. He did this as a U.S. Senator under the guise of a taxpayer-funded fact-finding trip. Barack Obama did not advertise this fact to the American people, nor did he advertise the fact that his cousin Odinga was trying to take over Kenya for Islam. His cousin Odinga had signed an agreement with Islamic factions in Kenya to get their support for the election. He promised them essentially that he would Islamify Kenya, to impose Sharia law, to suppress Christianity, and to make Kenya into a terrorist safe haven. That's right, to make Kenya into a terrorist safe haven. Fortunately, Obama's cousin lost the election, but the results were still disastrous because violence had been planned even before the election for an Islamic overthrow of the U.S.-friendly government. Exactly the extent of Barack Obama's involvement we have yet to find out, but we do know that he was intimately involved in planning Odinga's campaign.
This is what's been unleashed in Kenya. Ethnic warfare at its most basic and most brutal.
In the town of Kisumu, people are desperate to get out by whatever means they can.
One politician became popular with Kenya's poor by pledging to distribute the country's wealth more evenly.
We know that Barack Obama was calling his cousin up to 2 times a day at the height of his own campaign, and was frequently exchanging emails with Odinga from his Senate office, giving him advice on how to win. Almost 1,000 people died as a result of election violence, and 50 people were burned inside of a Christian church by Muslim followers of Odinga, while they were trying to seek refuge from the violence. I wish I could show you something here about Barack Obama's college records, but I can't because they've all been deliberately blocked by him, including all papers that he's written or hasn't written. We simply don't know because we can't have access. Barack Obama admits that his grandparents appointed a man named Frank as one of his mentors. This Frank, we have discovered beyond any doubt, is Frank Marshall Davis. Frank Marshall Davis was known to the FBI as a Soviet agent operating within the United States. Much of what Frank Marshall Davis wrote under a pseudonym we can't show you here because it's basically pornographic. However, a number of the themes touched upon in Frank Marshall Davis's literature are, in fact, reflected in Barack Obama's own speeches and writing. You probably already know about the infamous Reverend Wright, who is anti-American and who married Obama. At first, Obama said he could never deny his pastor. Then he tried to distance himself from his pastor. Then he left his pastor's church. Enough said. Barack Obama has many close relationships with terrorists, anti-Americans, Islamic supremacists. They all seem to like Barack Obama. Not the least famous of these is Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dohrn. Barack Obama's career was in fact launched at the home of Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dohrn, former Weather Underground members who tried to overthrow the United States by force and violence. But it also turns out that Bill Ayers probably helped Barack Obama write his 2 autobiographies. Many people know that Barack Obama's entry into the world of politics officially was as a community organizer. But what is a community organizer? Community organizing is actually a technique of developing radical leftists developed by a man named Alinsky. Alinsky himself, a former Russian police officer who moved to Chicago and worked with gang leaders to develop techniques for overthrowing current governments and replacing them with radical leftist governments by using weaknesses he found in the democratic system. In this role, he was basically following in the footsteps of his mentor, Frank Marshall Davis, as it was stated even by the Communist Party USA chairman. In fact, Frank Marshall Davis had attempted something very similar while he was being watched by agents of the FBI. I wish I could tell you about all the other concealments, deceptions, and diversions that have been used by Barack Obama. You'll have to do your own research on the internet. Many of the American media outlets have decided that the man should be president, regardless of any facts that may actually be uncovered about him.
Here is an image of Akhenaten. The word Akhenaten means worshippers of the sun. The logo for Barack Hussein Obama and his presidency is the rising sun over the stripes of the American flag. It's symbolic of the sun rising over the west, or the sun rising from the place of its setting. This is also referred to in the Quran. The coming of the Mahdi will be when the sun rises from the place of its setting. Now I would like for you to listen to this video by the P.P. Simmons Group, and we'll put the pieces together for you shortly after we run the video from Mr. Simmons.
In a heavily resourced and documented article at AmericanThinker.com titled Barack Hussein Sobarka by Jason Kistner, we find some amazing discoveries regarding the identity problem of Barack Hussein Obama. Jason Kistner is an associate professor of criminology at California State University, Fresno. Following is an edited synopsis of that article with an absolutely surprising find by the P.P. Simmons staff at the end of this video. One of the unexplained mysteries in the all but missing documentation of the early life of Barack Obama is the appearance of the name Sobarka as his last name on an official document filled out by his mother. We are in possession of Stanley Ann Dunham Sotoro's 1968 application to extend her 1965 passport for an additional 2 years. Her passport, by the way, is now reportedly destroyed. On the second page of the application, Ann Dunham attempted to exclude her son Barack Obama, or Sobarka, from her passport, but the item has been crossed out, perhaps on the advice of the consulate in Jakarta, as this would have left 7-year-old little Barry passportless, so the exclusion did not happen. The appendage Sobarka seems to indicate a name change or a change in citizenship status for the boy. But there is a very good and surprisingly simple explanation for the seemingly random appearance of the name Sobarka on Obama's mother's passport application. Believe it or not, the reason appears to be linked to Loretta Fuddy. That's right. The same Loretta Fuddy, the Hawaii State Health Director who approved the release of Obama's long-form birth certificate and who recently and mysteriously died in a plane crash off the coast of Molokai. Obama's mother and Loretta Fuddy have one very strange factor in common. Both have been directly linked to the Subud cult, which originated in, of all places, Indonesia, and was founded by the Javanese Muslim Muhammad Sabu. The small cult appears to have around 20,000 members worldwide. Fuddy's cult member name was Diliana. Her official position was regional helper. Note also that the World Subud organization seems to have been based in, of all cities, Chicago. Wow, think about it. Indonesia, Chicago, Hawaii, 3 locales linked directly and very importantly to Obama's life. We also know from a Hawaii Advertiser article that Subud was introduced to Hawaii in the 1960s. Obama's mother was directly linked to Subud by her biographer and New York Times reporter Janie Scott in the book A Singular Woman, The Untold Story of Barack Obama's Mother. This book was reviewed by the New York Times, so this is a heavily documented fact. Loretta Fuddy worked her way up the ranks and became chairwoman of Subud USA, based in Seattle, from 2006 to 2008. But note that of all the persons that could have been installed as director of the State Department of Health in Hawaii, Hawaii chose Fuddy, a leader of a small cult with roots in Indonesia and connections to Barack Obama's mother. Secondly, remember that Fuddy assumed the directorship position in Hawaii in January 2011 after being appointed by Hawaii's governor just a few months before the release of Obama's long-form birth certificate. Changing one's name for spiritual reasons was something frequently done by followers of the cult Subud. And Stanley Ann Sotoro was, in fact, closely associated with Subud. We know that. It is reasonable, then, to suppose that Sobarka, the name chosen for Obama on that passport, arose in the same way new names for others, like Deliana Loretta Fuddy did. But remember that the name Sobarka appears in the passport renewal section labeled amend to include or exclude children. The name Barack Hussein Obama Sobarku is crossed out. This signifies that Obama's mother had apparently decided to exclude Barack from her passport renewal. Apparently, Stanley Ann Dunham Sotoro changed her mind about the exclusion. Perhaps this was done after having been informed by the consulate there that doing so would leave Barack without a passport. But there is another possibility, one just as valid and even simpler. What if Obama's mother was trying to include Obama in the renewal, but she wasn't able to produce a birth certificate, and the Subud name Sobarka simply did not suffice legally? That could explain why the name Sobarka appears nowhere else in any of Obama's documentation of which we are currently aware. But now for the real shocker in this entire matter. The staff at P.P. Simmons did some research and found an old picture of the founder of the cult of Subud, one Mohammed Sabu Sumohadi Wijojo. Do you see anything odd here? Think about it. Fuddy, Obama's mother Dunham, Subud, Hawaii, Chicago, Indonesia, no birth certificate, Sobarka on the passport, a dead Hawaii Department of Health director, the one who conveniently certified Obama's forged and fabricated long-form birth certificate. Are all of these simply odd coincidences, or is there something more here? I have a feeling we will soon know the truth.
Fact number 1. Subud is the name of its founder, Mohammed Sabu. He was given that name as a new name from an unknown passerby during a near-death childhood experience. Here is an excerpt. Fact number 2. The Mahdi must come from the line of Muhammad. This also fits with the Bedouin tribe correlation as well. Fact number 3. The name Sabu means sunrise or dawn. Fact number 4. The coming of the Mahdi, or Antichrist, will be preceded by the sun rising from the place of its setting, which is the west. Barack Obama's campaign logo is the sun rising over the west. Fact number 5. The cult of Subud, or rising sun, originated in Indonesia. Barack and his mother lived in Indonesia, and Barack was raised in Indonesia. Fact number 6. Loretta Fuddy is also a member of the Rising Sun cult, Sabu. Remember that Obama's logo is a rising sun, and the name Sabu means rising sun. Fact number 7. Stanley Ann Dunham Sotero is Barack Obama's mother. She also raised Barack Obama in Indonesia, the same as the origin of the Rising Sun cult called Sabu. Oddly enough, the founder of Sabu, or Rising Sun, looks identical to Barack Obama, who also has a logo that is a rising sun. Fact number 8. Loretta Fuddy, a member of the Rising Sun cult, Sabud, is an acquaintance of Barack Obama's mother, who is also a member of the same cult from Indonesia. Fact number 9. Loretta Fuddy was recently mysteriously killed in a plane crash. And oddly enough, she was the one person of 7 billion people on planet Earth who was also a member of the Rising Sun cult that happened to be the one link to Barack Obama, whose logo is a rising sun, and his birth certificate. Truly, dead men or women tell no tales. Now let us consider some more information. Akhenaten, who was a pharaoh in ancient Egypt, also is associated with Imhotep the mummy. Akhenaten means worshippers of the sun. Here is a hieroglyph of Akhenaten, which shows an image of an alien inside Akhenaten himself. In the Bible, the devil is called the serpent or the dragon. Here is an image of Akhenaten in another hieroglyph, which shows a dragon coming out of the sun. Once again, the sun is involved. Revelation 12:9 in the Bible states, "And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceives the whole world." Therefore we know that the dragon is Satan. The Bible says that Satan turns things around and backwards and upside down. In Isaiah 29:16, let us consider those words. Here are images from the Bible, different versions that you may read for yourself. Now let us look at the 2008 inauguration of Barack Obama, whose mother's cult leader was also known as Bapak, B-A-P-A-K, almost identical to the name Barack. The leader of the cult, who was given his name under very mysterious circumstances, his name is Mohammed Sabu. The word Mohammed means to praise, and the word Sabu means the rising sun. So the words together mean to praise the rising sun. Here is a clip that shows Barack Obama giving his acceptance speech, standing on a stage that is a replica he had built of the seat of Satan, which is at the Berlin Museum. As he gives his speech, he encourages the crowd to repeat after him, "Yes, we can. Yes, we can." Remember that Satan turns things backwards and upside down. If you listen to the words "Yes, we can" backwards, it simply plays, "Thank you, Satan. Thank you, Satan." So he is standing on a stage, and they are praising Satan, saying it backwards, just as the Bible says.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Thank you, Satan. Thank you, Satan. Thank you, Satan. Thank you, Satan. Nomination for presidency of the United States. Let me express my thanks to the historic slate of candidates. Let me express self-esteem.
So Barack Obama, which means lightning from heaven, from Luke 10:18, in which Jesus said, "I beheld Satan falling as lightning from heaven, Barack Obama, is standing on a stage that is a replica of the seat of Satan. He is having the crowd chant, "Yes, we can," which backwards is "Thank you, Satan." And his logo is the rising sun. And the leader of the cult that his mother is from means to praise the rising sun. The only connection to Barack Obama and his birth certificate, Loretta Fuddy was mysteriously killed in a plane crash, and out of 7 billion people on planet Earth, she is the one connection between Barack Obama and his birth certificate, and they are from the same cult, the Rising Sun. The coming of the Mahdi, the Antichrist, will be preceded by the sun rising over the west. Let us consider everything you're looking at and consider it well before we move on to the conclusion.
My name is Barack Obama. My mother was born in Kansas. My father was born in Kenya. And I was born, of course, in Hawaii.
Remember that Satan turns things upside down and backwards. Let us look at 9/11. It is a fact that Barack Obama signed an 11,000-pound steel beam at the top of the One World Freedom Center, which replaced the Twin Towers. The beam read, "We remember, we rebuild, we come back stronger." It is a fact that the letters WWW from we in Hebrew are va va va, which is the equivalent of 666. Therefore, when Barack Obama signed the top of the One World Freedom Tower, he signed the numbers 666 in Hebrew. It is a fact that Revelation 9:11 states, quote, "And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in Greek tongue has the name Apollyon." It is also a fact that Eos, E-O-S, means morning star or goddess. It is also an established fact that Eo, the root of Eos, means Abaddon or Apollyon. It is a fact that the name Barack Hussein Sobarka appears on his mother's 1968 passport extension from Indonesia. Remember, Satan turns things backwards and upside down. Let us look at Sobarka broken down backwards. The root of Hakrab is Akra, which means weakness of will, acting in a way that is contrary to one's sincerely held moral values. This is what happens when a person falls into a sinful state. They act in a way that is contrary to their sincerely held moral values. Remember, Eos means goddess or morning star. Eo, the root, means Abaddon or Apollyon. The root of Sobarka backward is a sinful state. The entirety of the word is a sinful state, Abaddon. Here is an image of the Denver Broncos Stadium as they worship their king, Abaddon, the rider on the white horse.
The name Obama took from his Indonesian stepfather, Lolo Sotoro. That class register says Obama came from Honolulu and lists his date of birth. But look at his nationality. It's listed as Indonesian and his religion as Islam.
What I was suggesting, you're absolutely right that John McCain has not talked about my Muslim faith, and you're absolutely right that has not
Christian
come
faith.
My Christian faith.
No longer a Christian nation, or no longer a Christian nation.
As the U.S. prepares to send 30,000 more troops to Afghanistan, President Barack Obama receives his Nobel Peace Prize in Norway. The nomination, announced in October, elicited swift reaction. Some praised the choice, while others questioned whether or not Obama really deserved it. By then, the president had been in office for less than a year, whereas the Peace Prize is traditionally given for long-term achievements. In his acceptance speech, the president said, "War is sometimes a necessary measure to achieve peace."
I am pro-choice. I believe in Roe versus Wade, and I come to that conclusion not because I'm pro-abortion.
It is important for me to go ahead and affirm that I think same-sex couples should be able to get married.
So once again, the president supports same-sex marriage.
This is the Constitution of the United States of America. Article 3, Section 3 defines treason as levying war, adhering to the enemies of the United States, or giving aid and comfort to enemies of the United States. It breaks my heart to have to say this, but I must. My research proves that it is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. The President of the United States is guilty of giving aid and comfort to our deadliest enemies, to terrorists who have already killed thousands of us. He is giving deadly weapons to Al-Qaeda, weapons systems designed to shoot airplanes out of the sky, weapons that make no distinction between military and civilian airplanes. The Obama administration has shipped these state-of-the-art weapons directly to Al-Qaeda affiliates in Egypt, Libya, and Syria. In this video, I will present irrefutable proof. Needless to say, the administration has done everything it can to keep this story under wraps. It's stonewalling Congress, telling outright lies when cornered, subjecting career CIA officials to regular lie detector tests to prevent leaks, and threatening any potential whistleblowers into silence. But now, despite the administration's best efforts, the truth has begun to emerge, and President Obama and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton are shaking in their boots. Because more than its IRS scandal, more than its fast and furious outrage, more than the outcry over its illegal NSA spying on innocent U.S. citizens, or even than its disgraceful persecution of reporters, the Obama administration knows that this shocking scandal has the power to single-handedly bring down the entire U.S. government, trigger chaos in America's streets, and shake the global financial markets to their core. I know these are grave accusations, They will be impossible for many to believe, so let me make this clear right up front. I am neither Republican nor Democrat, neither liberal nor conservative. I am simply a proponent of the truth. Now, imagine what could happen when the public awakes to the documented fact that President Barack Hussein Obama has secretly given deadly weapons to Al-Qaeda affiliates who have sworn to slaughter every American possible. I know it's hard to believe that any U.S. president would ever do such a thing. And of course the Obama administration is still denying everything. They'll place their hand on a stack of Bibles and swear that at no time did the Obama administration know what the Obama administration was doing. But I assure you it is true, and I'm not the only analyst who's reporting this explosive story. Time magazine, CNN, Fox News, the New York Times, and many others have reported on this story too. In August 2013, for instance, Time magazine asked, "Does Obama support the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt?" Earlier in June, Fox News reported, "As Egypt unravels, Team Obama increases support for Muslim Brotherhood." Many other major media outlets have also reported fragments of this story, but until now, nobody has given the American people the truth. This is about our own government, the very people sworn to protect us, giving deadly weapons to the people sworn to kill us. As incredible as it sounds, the Obama administration, with the full knowledge and approval of key members of Congress and the intelligence services, is shipping massive amounts of guns, missiles, and high-technology weapons to the Muslim Brotherhood. Who is the Muslim Brotherhood? A global Islamist organization that seeks to re-establish the historic global Muslim empire, or caliphate, extending from Indonesia in Asia all the way to Spain. According to court documents in the United States, the Brotherhood's goal is a kind of grand jihad for eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within. In June, Tarek Fatah of the Toronto Sun, in an article entitled "Obama Arming America's Enemies," asked why the Obama administration is providing funding and possible future arms to Al-Qaeda-inspired terrorists. In Egypt, Fatah pointed out the Obama administration had waived the condition of human rights observance that it had attached to any future military sales to Egypt. Secretary John Kerry asked Congress to release $1.3 billion in U.S. military support for 2013. This, despite evidence that Egypt was violating the human rights of its own citizens, particularly its Christian population. Since then, the Muslim Brotherhood has been banned in Egypt. But Egypt is merely one small part of what the Obama administration is doing in the Middle East. Now, it would be bad enough if the Obama administration was only guilty of arming the Muslim Brotherhood. Unfortunately, there's more. In the wake of the popular uprisings in the Arab world that became known as the Arab Spring, the Obama administration and U.S. intelligence officials decided to ship weapons and provide military support to rebels fighting Libyan strongman Muammar Gaddafi. This was actually an odd decision. For all his faults, Gaddafi had been a moderate force in the Arab world for the previous decade. He strongly condemned the 9/11 attacks and Al-Qaeda, renounced development of weapons of mass destruction in 2003, and saw Libya removed from the U.S. list of state sponsors of terrorism in 2006. Nevertheless, the Obama administration began shipping massive amounts of advanced, high-tech weapons to rebels based in the Libyan seaside city of Benghazi. The Obama administration, with help from NATO sources, also began enforcing a no-fly zone over Libya, which included a series of bombing attacks that Congress insisted were unconstitutional. Both Republicans and Democrats were outraged. Even the left-wing activist Ralph Nader branded Obama a war criminal and called for his impeachment. And after U.S. naval forces launched 110 cruise missiles at military targets in Libya, another liberal suggested that Obama should return his Nobel Peace Prize. But the massive air assault and supply of billions of dollars worth of high-tech weapons to the Islamic rebels worked. On October 20th, 2011, Gaddafi was captured alive while attempting to escape from the city of Sirte. His very public, very brutal execution by youthful Islamic rebels was broadcast on YouTube. And even this is only the beginning of the story, because just as critics predicted, Libya quickly devolved into an outlaw paradise, as Islamic fundamentalists, armed armed with guns provided by the Obama administration began to take over. No one should have been surprised, therefore, when less than a year later, on September 11th, 2012, the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, a band of Islamic jihadists attacked a U.S. compound in Benghazi. 4 U.S. citizens were killed in the attacks, including U.S. Ambassador Christopher Stevens. By some accounts, the real purpose of Stevens' visit to Benghazi was to orchestrate efforts to buy back shoulder-fired Stinger anti-aircraft missiles from al-Qaeda militias, missiles that had been earlier provided by the State Department to the rebels. Some reports even claimed that Stevens was trying to ship these weapons to rebels in Syria via arms dealers in Turkey. As the New York Times reported in late 2012, the Obama administration secretly gave its blessings to arms shipments to Libyan rebels from Qatar last year. But American officials later grew alarmed as evidence grew that Qatar was turning some of the weapons over to Islamic militants, according to United States officials and foreign diplomats. Such a mission would normally be a CIA operation, but the intelligence agency allegedly opposed the idea of shipping anti-aircraft weapons to Islamic militias because such high-tech weapons can endanger civilian aircraft. Nevertheless, according to one report, then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton still wanted to proceed with the weapon shipments because she wanted to overthrow Gaddafi on the cheap. But the plan backfired, as government plans often do. There is no conclusive evidence yet that the weapons from the U.S. State Department were used in the Benghazi attack, but there is overwhelming evidence that the U.S. guns were going to hardcore anti-American jihadists like the ones who attacked the U.S. compound. The New York Times explained it this way. Within weeks of endorsing Qatar's plan to send weapons there in the spring of 2011, the White House began receiving reports that they were going to Islamic militant groups. They were more anti-democratic, more hardline, closer to an extreme version of Islam than the main rebel alliance in Libya, said a former Defense Department official. In other words, the Obama team was caught red-handed arming America's worst enemies, the same Islamic fundamentalists who provided money and guns to terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda. All this would be bad enough, but it doesn't end there. The U.S. government wants to portray the Syrian rebels as democratic freedom fighters. Secretary of State John Kerry estimates that only 15 to 20% are bad guys or extremists. But the facts on the ground directly contradict that cheery assessment. One military official estimated that al-Qaeda-affiliated radical Islamic groups in Syria now constitute more than 50% of the rebel force and are growing by the day. The point was hammered home with chilling force in early September when the New York Times released photos on its front page of Syrian Islamic rebels summarily executing prisoners in cold blood. The evidence points to the conclusion that many of the Islamist rebels the Obama administration supports in Syria are made up, the Times said, of gangs of highwaymen, kidnappers, and killers. Despite this, the Obama administration has been secretly supplying literally billions of dollars in sophisticated weapons to these brutal terrorist organizations, just as in Egypt and Libya, in direct violation of both U.S. and international law. However, as is often the case when the Obama administration encounters opposition in Congress, administration officials have simply ignored current legal restraints and shipped the arms anyway. And now the truth is finally coming out. Aaron Klein of the Daily Caller says one would be hard-pressed to find a more significant impeachable offense than aiding and abetting the sworn enemies of the United States, especially when any such support includes sending weapons to our murderous adversaries. A crime on that scale would certainly be made all the more serious if those same enemies turned around and utilized the U.S.-provided arms to kill Americans. The Washington Examiner reported that Obama had waived a provision of federal law designed to prevent the supply of arms to terrorist groups, to clear the way for the U.S. to provide military assistance to opposition groups fighting Syrian dictator Bashar Assad, including radical Islamic terrorist groups and Al-Qaeda. This led radio talk show host Glenn Beck to call directly for Obama's impeachment. I personally am calling to impeach the President of the United States. This is impeachable. He is arming known terrorists.
We've ended the war in Iraq. I've kept the commitments that I've made. I told you we'd end the war in Iraq. We did.
Remind them that this is the president that ended the war in Iraq.
Joining me now in studio to further break down this current bombing campaign Obama is embarking upon in Iraq against ISIS, Alex Jones.
Leanne, this is one of the biggest stories of our age because it's hiding in plain view. It's even hiding in the front page of major newspapers, but the media won't point out how sensationally evil this is, that the West, the United States, Saudi Arabia, Israel, and so many other groups through NATO and others are arming IS, Islamic State, or ISIS as it was known. This is simply a branding change from Al-Qaeda, because the West was caught funding them in Syria the last 3 years, to IS. So we're going to show people the mainline documentation that it is our government at the front of the line with France and so many others, England's involved as well, Turkey's involved, literally turning loose a group that is murdering Christians from Africa to Iraq to Syria to Egypt.
Since 2003, attackers have bombed 70 churches in Iraq alone, and that's only the beginning.
We're seeing a very vicious attack on Christians in a number of countries.
They asked him, "Will you deny Christ and become a Hindu?" He said no. Then I saw the Hindu mob pour gasoline on my brother-in-law, and they burnt him alive.
They surrounded the church, and within minutes the whole building was on fire. They broke into the house and started beating me. Then they dragged me out front and pulled out a sword. Another person had an axe in his hand.
For more than a month now, Orissa has witnessed some of the worst persecution against Christians ever in India's history. 4,000 Christian homes and some 400 churches were destroyed.
Please pray for us.
Christian America is under attack. The enemy, the mainstream media. From MSNBC's Keith Olbermann referring to pro-lifers as Christian jihadists. CBS journalist Katie Couric calling Christian values repugnant. Its goal, to overthrow God and silence Christian America for good. That according to author and political columnist S.E. Cupp, who warns the mainstream media is using its influence to wage war against the nation's Judeo-Christian heritage.
Why do you think they actually can get away with it? It seems like Christians are the only group in America that you can just take pot shots at, and there seems to be no repercussions at all.
You're absolutely right, and that's because no one is calling anyone to the mat on this.
Now let's listen to some news clips to hear if we can find any clues in what they're saying is coming.
You think most big stores are accepting the chip technology, but not all yet?
Well, I think they're switching over to it. I think it's going to be a process. I read something earlier tonight that said that credit card companies are telling stores to really get ready for this by the fall of 2015.
Example of Christians being charged with a supposed hate crime for trying to preach the gospel to homosexuals happened recently in Philadelphia. Michael Markavich is the founder and director of Repent America.
On October 10th of 2004, our ministry was present at an event in Philadelphia called Outfest, which is a taxpayer-funded event which celebrates homosexuality. And we were there to address the public celebration of sin and to proclaim the Word of God and the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Markavich and 10 other people carried signs and proclaimed the message of repentance and change through Christ at the event, which took place on the public streets of downtown Philadelphia.
When we did arrive, we were interfered with by this militant group of homosexuals who came together to oppose our presence, to basically say that they're not going to allow us to come into the public streets to share the gospel. Police, instead of dealing with those who were acting disorderly, which was the homosexual group who were blowing these loud piercing whistles and engaged in blocking us with these styrofoam boards that were cut into the form of angels. The police didn't deal with that situation, even though I'd asked.
Instead, police arrested the members of Repent America and took them to jail. Arlene Elshinaway is a 75-year-old grandmother who demonstrated with Repent America that day.
I've never been arrested for any reason whatsoever. We were handcuffed. We ended up at some police station.
Ted Hoppy, an attorney affiliated with the Alliance Defense Fund, represented the so-called Philadelphia 11.
They ultimately were arrested, charged with disorderly conduct, put in handcuffs, and taken away. They were held in jail for about 21 hours, charged, and then ultimately released, but still facing the criminal charges. What ended up happening was the district attorney's office formally charged them. Included in the charges against them were a charge under the Pennsylvania hate crimes law. Pennsylvania is called an ethnic intimidation, but it really is a hate crimes law. And that crime is a felony, and if they were convicted of that, would carry jail time in a state penitentiary.
If they had found us guilty of these things, it was worth 47 years in prison.
Jihad on Christians is underway. Check out these images. The Muslim Brotherhood carrying out vicious attacks on churches, homes, schools, and even an orphanage.
Can you imagine the outrage this administration would express if anywhere in the world Christians had burned 60 mosques? But the administration's response to the attacks upon the murder of Christians, the destruction of churches, some of them 1,600 years old, has been one clause in one sentence. And by the way, it's not just the administration. Astonishingly, Senator McCain, Senator Graham, and others on the right are saying nothing about this, but rather arguing that some magic how this marvelous Morsi Muslim Brotherhood government should be reinstated. We're being cowards, and it's fair game on Christians. And oh, by the way, as far as the left, you can excite more sympathy for the destruction of the Aztec and Mayan empires than for the destruction of 2,000 years of Christian civilization in the Middle East. This is a Holocaust, and we are as silent now as we were in the 1930s. How many networks other than Fox are covering these barbaric assaults and upon Christians elsewhere throughout the Middle East? This destruction of an incredibly rich 2,000-year-old civilization. And we not only don't do anything, we don't say anything. Meanwhile, the people of Egypt are struggling against Islamist totalitarianism. And President Obama and Senator McCain are siding with the Islamist totalitarians. Explain why that makes sense for America.
And let's not forget about the homosexual agenda. We've got a president who says it's okay to have same-sex marriages. Here we see a Christian preacher being attacked by a homosexual mob. Muslims were accused of beheading 2 Christians in the United States already. We've got the blatant call for the death of religion by famous TV personalities. So you're going to see things like this, shooting at Creflo Dollar's megachurch, pastor killed, 2 hurt in Illinois church shooting, American Muslims stoned Christians in Dearborn, Michigan, a judge finds preacher guilty of disorderly conduct for preaching near a bar. Street preachers do get killed in the United States. Here we go. Gunman executes woman while she decorates church. From jailing evangelists to church bomb plots, Christian persecution is on the rise. Here's another attack on Christians while preaching the gospel to a homosexual crowd. Police don't do anything, and they just keep attacking these guys and attacking these guys. Pray for our brothers who do this kind of work, like myself. Evangelist jailed for preaching at a train station. A missionary was jailed in North Carolina for telling officers to repent. Philadelphia police cited this preacher for being flashed by a female heckler. Christians arrested for preaching in New Orleans after sunset. Police vow to target the churches. And this Phoenix preacher was actually sentenced to jail for holding home worship meetings in his own property. Now this preacher was just singing and preaching and was attacked by 2 men with knives. And then this man was heroic and helped the guy who was being attacked. He was a Walmart employee. Illinois man arrested for plotting to bomb dozens of Oklahoma churches. International code may force home churches, small groups to pony up, shut up, or go underground. And it just goes on and on and on. Ordinance targeting free speech. There's no surprise. Christians have been deemed terrorists. Watch my video on this. This is not a joke. They will be targeting Christians. They're being warned about Christians who take the Bible literally, and we are being labeled as extremists, terrorists. We will be put on the watch lists and denied guns. Our phones will be tapped. Our homes will be tapped. Crackdowns on universities are no surprise. Bible studies in college dorm rooms are being shut down. And I didn't even have time to get into all the military persecutions and people being court-martialed for their faith in the United States military.
We are no longer a Christian nation.
Literally turning loose a group that is murdering Christians from Africa to Iraq to Syria to Egypt. And now Obama has the nerve to claim he's bombing them. So we're going to break down exactly what's behind all of this. Now, the Pentagon, the globalists have been on record for a long time saying that the takedown of Saddam in 1991, the second takedown in 2003, was about destabilizing a stable country and bringing in destabilization forces and breaking the country in three parts. Why is IS now being bombed after 3+ years of being given weapons from Benghazi and other areas by the Pentagon, by NATO, by Qatar, by Saudi Arabia, and by all these other factors to literally kill more than 300,000 people, launch chemical attacks, you name it, against the Assad regime who did nothing to anybody in Syria? They were allowed to come in the last 6 months, invade Iraq, take major cities. The entire time this was happening, even months ago, the Pentagon would not bomb their convoys with their Predator drones. They would leave them be, claiming, oh, we don't know what to do. They were armed to begin with. You remember about a year ago, whenever Rand Paul and others said we're not al-Qaeda's Air Force in Syria, just neighboring, that was about our military saying no to openly arming al-Qaeda. So when the public got upset about that, they named it ISIS, or now IS, to confuse people. But it's the black flag of al-Qaeda. It's the same people. So why are they bombing now? 2 reasons, then we'll go over the proof. Number one, Obama and the globalists are getting a lot of heat for openly being behind radical Sunni Islam with Saudi Arabia that is financing the entire destabilization so they can take over. And they're the big Western ally and the most radical form of Islam and the people that reportedly attacked us on 9/11, if you believe the official story. So who do we attack on 9/11? Do we attack the Sunni country that supplied 15 of the 19 hijackers? No, we attack Iraq with a secular leader, formerly CIA, put in 1979 during a more reasonable policy of stabilization of the region, though they moved to destabilization and had him attack Iran in that 7-year war in the 1980s. So it's an ongoing destabilization campaign that gets more and more morally bankrupt, more and more evil. Now, first off, he has to act like he's getting tough on these terrorists. How can they take our rights away when our own government is funding al-Qaeda? Change the name, turn them loose. The public's not buying it. So now you bomb some limited areas up here because they had seized some infrastructure, some oil fields run by the West, and had seized some dams. They want to break the country in 3 parts. The Shiite area, then you've got the Sunni area, and the Kurd area. That's always been the plan going back to 1991. They had to get the country broken down first, deindustrialize it, get rid of the central government in Baghdad to do that. So ISIS is supposed to only come in this deal that's been signed with Iran, that's come out, to where they permanently get this chunk of Iraq and the oil. The Kurds get this chunk and sell it to the EU, and Saudi Arabia and the West get this chunk to now break the country in 3 parts. Now, that's stated by the Council on Foreign Relations. A segregated or divided country, that's a British model of control. That's a fact, not my opinion. But on CNN and Fox News, you'll never hear any of this. It's just, we're bombing al-Qaeda or ISIS. Aren't we good? Now let us take all your rights away. When they brought them in to begin with to bring down the country. So this country has been targeted by the West for deindustrialization, population reduction, and destruction. A crime against humanity, a hardcore, long-term war crime. That's the big issue. Now, it's not just about the destabilization of Iraq. It's also about using this new al-Qaeda Islamic State base here in Western Iraq to continue to split up Syria and other surrounding countries. They've even got ISIS now attacking groups in Western friendly countries like Jordan and other areas. So this is a double cross of everyone, a completely devilish move. Now, finally, let's move to some of the documentation. Leanne McAdoo has some of the mainstream media articles right there. ISIS fighter claims Turkey funds the jihadist group. Well, there's no claiming about it. They have giant training camps there. There's another, London Independent, Iraq crisis, how Saudi Arabia helped ISIS take over the north of the country. Let's move on to the next story here. Another article out of Business Insider. ISIS is likely receiving funding from people living in countries allied with the U.S. It's not likely. It's been on record. This group was armed by the West, by NATO, trained by British commandos in Syria, and then ran back across the border to start this takeover. American allies are funding ISIS. No, America's doing it. What do you think Benghazi and the Stinger missiles were about? And the headlines now that they have them that we predicted. ISIS trained by U.S. government, another article. And John McCain went and hung out with them, with the leaders of ISIS a year ago. And now they've been handed all these oil fields that they supposedly run, but that oil companies are going to buy the oil from. Can't have any sanctions on ISIS. So the only reason they're being bombed is because they're not totally run, they're protected, and they're like demons you release into an area to destabilize things. They get greedy and start grabbing more. That's when the bombing starts to say, no, 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 can't have those Kurdish oil fields. No, 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 behave yourself or the predators are coming. This is managing evil in just a cauldron of destabilization. Let's move on now to the next stack of news here. Again, Obama is being heralded as finally taking on ISIS. If you go back and look at the airlift of evil that happened back in 2001 that our own military told us about, they didn't really attack the real Al-Qaeda or Taliban. They would bomb conscript 12, 14-year-olds out in bunkers and in ditches in front of the advancing NATO and U.S. coalition forces. Then the real Al-Qaeda Taliban would be waiting, turn themselves in to be paid in gold, loaded on C-130s, 40,000 of them, and flown to safety in Pakistan. So again, Obama is doing this to distract the public from the fact that the West is actually bankrolling and protecting ISIS, and they're doing it to let them know who's boss and keep them in line, because all these groups hate each other. And I mentioned that airlift of evil. There's the NBC News article on it. The Times of London reported on it, and many, many others, where again, they took the real Taliban and Al-Qaeda force, brought them into Pakistan just 2 months into the Afghan war back in 2001 to start the terror networks up again and then move that proxy army to the next area. I've been studying it for more than a decade, and it's hiding in plain view, but the media uses the relative complexity to confuse the public.
Right, well, we're funding them, training them at secret training bases in Jordan. And then, like you said, they're kind of slapping that, no, no, no. Obama comes out yesterday almost gently saying, well, we're going to airstrike you if you move too close. You know, just, it's like, no, you're talking to terrorists. This is when you should actually be a president and talk tough. But he's like, well, we're going to do this humanitarian strike. And it's like, this is the one time people say, drone them. You know, they're sitting here basically saying they're going to be flying the flag of Al-Qaeda at the White House.
That's right. They said they're going to blow the White House up, hoist their flag, all this. And Obama's like, I'm going to nicely stop some of you, because they are his allies, and he's forced to basically do this to his own minions because so much exposure is coming on this. And there's a lot of sick people out there that says the end justifies the means. We've got to control these countries. No, they're bringing them back to the Stone Age and putting people in charge that murder Christians en masse, publicly eat hearts, and are now cutting the heads off of babies and releasing the videos themselves. So this is the worst scum of the earth, who is used as the threat to take our rights in America, and our scumbag government is funding these people. This is outrageous, and we've got to get the word out on it. That can stop this crime. And they're killing non-violent, non-radical Muslims en masse, blowing up their mosques, blowing up churches, killing hundreds of thousands of Christians, and nothing is being done, and the system thinks we're so stupid. And as you said, they have bases in Jordan, they have bases in Western Iraq that the Pentagon let them have, they have bases in Turkey, it's come out, and now they're even starting to attack places like Jordan that are their allies. That's how out of control they are. But see, the Jordanian government can now use these guys as an excuse and as a pretext to take Jordanian liberties, just like they can take our liberties here as well. Viewers out there, you have been shown the true historical breakdown in the last 10 minutes of exactly what's going on. This truth is well known now, and it's a war crime. It's purely Machiavellian evil that we're involved in, working with Al-Qaeda to topple innocent regimes, blow up churches, and murder small children.
This is an astonishing interview with former CIA operative Jim Garrow, and he's got more details on what Obama has planned for the United States, and it includes a currency collapse that is going to be orchestrated by China and Russia.
The Truth is Viral, the only news program on the internet trusted to deliver the truth since 2008. And now, here's your host, Mr. Bobby Powell.
My guest this evening is Dr. Jim Garrow. And Dr. Garrow is a Nobel Peace Prize nominee. He's a humanitarian, a philanthropist, and the man whose Pink Pagoda Agency and schools have saved more than 40,000 unwanted Chinese girls. Now, while he was going about God's work saving those little girls from China's oppressive one-child policy, he was also an operative for the CIA. Jim's been on the show several times, and he revealed the now famous litmus test that's supposed to determine which of the nation's military officers will fire on American citizens if they are given such a treasonous order. And he also revealed Obama's plans to use his 70-agency Department of Homeland Security to act as his private army, his brown shirts, to enforce his Marxist Muslim takeover of this country. Now, you can watch these shows by clicking this link right here. Now, the last time Jim was on the show, he shocked us when he blew the lid off of Obama's failed false flag, his latest failure. It seems like this guy is nothing but a string of failures. You know, if he wasn't being supported by the devil himself, I don't think that he'd ever get anything done the right way. But this failed false flag, it seems that Barry had plans to nuke the United States, to destroy us, send us back to the 1800s with the use of electromagnetic pulse bombs. Now, thank God, and 3 brave flag and general officers, Obama failed. Once again, he failed to get control of the nuclear weapons that he had planned to use to create this electromagnetic pulse attack. And 2014 is going to be a very exciting year. And here to tell us what he knows about 2014 is our friend Dr. Jim Garrow. Dr. Jim, thank you for coming back to The Truth is Viral, brother. It's always an honor to have you on the show.
Glad to be here. I love your introduction. You made me sound like a good dude. This is good.
Well, you really are a good dude. Yeah, well, Jim, tell us what's going on. What's the latest news out of this craziness in Washington, D.C.?
Well, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, generally. And Mr. Amateur Obama, of course, has had his fingers in all sorts of pies and made all sorts of promises over time. We're now headed for year 6 under this despot. And he has sold us out in more ways than you can think of, made more agreements than you'll ever believe. But we got a hint. Got a hint thanks to an open mic and a cameraman who left his camera on. And Mr. Obama is seen talking to the Prime Minister of Russia and asking that a message be passed on to, as the Prime Minister called him, Vladimir. And he was glad to pass this message on that after the election, after he won the election, Mr. Obama would have more flexibility. Now, what is the flexibility he was referring to? And you know, this tale of terror, how long has this been going on? What is the cooperation that the two of them are working out with each other? And how does that play out for the rest of the world? Well, what was being referred to was the expansionist policies that Putin wanted to put in place because his vision is to recreate the USSR. It's to bring back into the fold the countries that previously made up the USSR. And of course, critical to all of this is going to be his ability to shut off, are you ready, the gas that heats Europe, which means the European states are going to shut up and say nothing as he moves and expands back into the old USSR. So the very first move we see is, of course, his move into the Ukraine, into Crimea, where, of course, all of those pipelines flow through that feed Europe the natural gas out of the Baltic or the Black Seas. Right? So that's one essence of what's going on, but there's more. There's so much more.
Is what we see on CNN and MSNBC and Fox and all this, is this a show, for the masses, and they've really got some kind of alternate deal going on behind the scenes?
Yeah, absolutely. He's been very crafty. His ideology is one that he doesn't. Let's just say this: he doesn't know what an American is. He doesn't know how to act like an American. He doesn't know what to believe as an American. So he doesn't present as an American. So he has constantly to be coached as to how he should act and what he should say. Otherwise, the totalitarian, that's what I like to call him, by the way. You mix up the Muslim part of him and you throw in the Marxist part of him. What do you got? You got a totalitarian with a tendency to chop off heads. That's the other side of it. But yeah, there he is. He has no idea how to act, but he is dedicated to the overthrow of America. He has, since the early years, as he was taught, America is an evil thing. It is the great Satan on the Muslim side, and on the commie side from his grandparents, he was taught that the proletariat would rise up against the bourgeoisie, and the worker state could be brought to bear in the United States. And of course, that's what partly what he's after. Now, that's after he becomes the 12th Imam.
Okay, now I need to know about this because Reza Khalili, the CIA spy that I was telling you about and my viewers about earlier, translated a video. It's called "The Coming Is Upon Us," and if my viewers want to click this link right here, it'll open up a new tab and you can watch that. And this is a very interesting video because it is sponsored by the state of Iran, by the Islamic Republic of Iran. Okay, this is their official policy, folks. And they are telling their populace to expect the return of Imam Mahdi at any time. And, what you've seen on this show 100 times, that, Obama's got this little backdoor deal going with Iran, okay? Because not only, number one, is he a Muslim, but Valerie Jarrett is a dual Iranian-American citizen. And Reza Khalili, revealed on this show in the episode that I put up earlier, that Valerie Jarrett has been conducting her own shuttle diplomacy in the Middle East, going to Iran and meeting with Iranian officials in Doha, Qatar, and they're crafting secret deals. As a matter of fact, this deal that they just signed, this travesty, as Benjamin Netanyahu called it, you can't even read it. Nobody can read it because it's locked up under secret lock and key. The Iranians, the Obama administration says, well, this shuts down their program. They can't enrich any more uranium. So nobody knows what's in this agreement. But
wait, we do.
Yeah.
Wait.
Okay. What is
Iran has said very clearly they gave up nothing.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Including, there's no stalling of their nuclear program. There's nothing. So I would believe the Iranians before I believed Obama.
I would believe just about anybody before I believe Obama. I'll tell you the truth.
I would like to suggest to you that Mr. Obama is trying to imitate Jesus. He was chosen as the peacemaker of the world on the 7th day of Tabernacles in 2009. This was the only day of the year when the Jewish people would cry out, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." This was the day that they looked for their Messiah, the Prince of Peace. Then they cried out to Jesus on the 10th day of Nisan the same words when he rode into Jerusalem. Those that did this recognized that Jesus was their Messiah. Now, we have a man named Barak, whose name means blessed, who rode into Jerusalem on a borrowed beast on the 10th of Nisan on the Jewish calendar, exactly 1260 days after he was chosen as the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize on the 7th day of Tabernacles.
Welcome. I wanted to share this information with you. This is a Martis Ministry Prophecy Watch. We've been covering in more detail in our radio broadcast, a lot of things that are going on and how it relates to Bible prophecy. But I just wanted to kind of give a summary of some of the things that we're covering covering about Obama. We've been covering, first of all, the first beast and the second beast. And the first beast being the world political leader, the Antichrist, which Obama is fulfilling the role of, which is actually the Al-Mahdi of Islam. We've also been sharing about Pope Francis and his role as the false prophet, the world religious leader, the second beast. So these are just a couple of the things that we want to touch on about them and what's going on in the news and looking how it relates to prophecy. So please understand that as I go through this, there's a lot of things that you may be unfamiliar with. You can check out links to not just the broadcast, but also the articles that we cover. A lot of people don't know what Obama is really doing. And if we look and understand the connection to Islam, a lot will be revealed. He is the first, not just president, first one ever that since his presidency and since his election, since he's come into office, we have never ever seen such a rise in the Muslim Brotherhood, such a rise in Sharia law worldwide, and it's just not a coincidence. So that's one of the things. Now, he's been seen asking various leaders, such as in Egypt and Libya, for example, and now Syria, to step down. And shortly thereafter, either someone ends up dead or the leader does step down, and then the result of the leader stepping down always results in a regime change.
Although Mubarak was indeed a corrupt leader, along with the authorities under his rule, they were correct in identifying the Muslim Brotherhood as having a hidden agenda. This hidden agenda of the Muslim Brotherhood is that of taking positions of political power in the Middle East to form an Islamic caliphate with Jerusalem as its capital. Their goal is to remove any leader in power that opposes this plan. Barack Hussein Obama is siding with the opposition party of the Muslim Brotherhood in several ways, including aiding their move to positions of power by supporting the ousting of any leaders in the way of the caliphate agenda.
This regime change is really the rise of Sharia law in the name of, democracy or a transitional democracy or a political transition. And it's just a disguise for Sharia law. And that's really what's going on. What is happening is that as these leaders are stepping on, the rise of Sharia law is going on in these places, a caliphate is forming. Okay, we see that there's a caliphate forming. They're using a lot of different excuses for why these leaders need to step down, such as chemical warfare and different things. But there's always what they tell you, and there's always something else really going on behind the scene. And that's the thing. There's a real deep agenda in all of this. So we've been seeing that, okay, Obama's been supporting a lot of the rebels in various places, including Syria. Okay, he's been doing it behind the doors largely. But with Syria, it's now becoming more and more obvious. In fact, he's just openly, supporting the rebels. And what's happening is that these rebels are absolutely connected with the Islamic caliphate forming agenda, with Sharia law, all of that. So it's direct support for that. I would like to read this article. It's out of abcnews.go.com, dated May 1st, 2013. The article is titled, Obama Ramps Up Support for Syrian Opposition. President Obama has directed his national security team to identify ways to significantly ramp up U.S. support of the opposition forces battling Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Among the options under consideration is supplying arms to rebel forces. Goes on to say, the items, quote, the items to be supplied will be decided after consultations with the Supreme Military Command, end of quote, National Security Council spokeswoman Caitlin Hayden said. Additional communications equipment, armor, night vision goggles, and vehicles are among the items discussed. Hayden also suggested aid to the rebels could go beyond such non-lethal assistance. Quote, we continue to consider all other possible options that would accomplish our objective of hastening a political transition. End of quote, she said. Do you understand what's going on? This political transition, it is a transition, but it's not into democracy. It's a transition into a theocracy. And so this is all done in the name of peace and for the better, and these are just lies, straight lies. What's happening is the caliphate that's being formed will end up with Jerusalem being the capital of this caliphate. That is the stated goal. That is the goal of what many Muslim clerics have openly said, such as Safwat Hagazi. He's openly, called for this, and he said, Jerusalem, let's march to Jerusalem as the capital of our caliphate, and he had thousands of people behind him. So that is their goal.
Because a lot of people don't know that President Obama supported al-Qaeda to overthrow Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi. They don't know that it was Qatari and Lebanese and Syrian soldiers that killed Muammar Gaddafi and not Libyan rebels.
The only news program on the internet trusted to deliver the truth since 2008.
That definition is slavery. Wasn't the most destructive war in American history fought in part to abolish slavery? The entire idea of forced, uncompensated employment is abhorrent to any civilized man or woman, and here it raises its ugly head again in the form of an executive order from our supposed president. I find it particularly ironic that this executive order was signed by a black man. You'd think he'd know better, but he's operating on somebody else's agenda now, isn't he? Now, I urge you to read this executive order for yourself. I put the link in the description below this video. I'm not making this up. You can go see it for yourself in the government archives. I will not allow slavery and murder to be the new paradigm in my country. Here's a recently leaked Army manual entitled FM 3-39.040 Internment and Resettlement Operations. It details how American citizens are to be rounded up and put into these re-education camps. It talks about how military-style psyops are to be used to torture and brainwash inmates into compliance. The link to that Army document is also in the description below this video. I'm not pulling this stuff out of my butt, people. It's there in official government documents for all to see. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is undeniable fact. Now, I will continue to fight for truth, justice, and the real American way as long as I'm able. To do this, I need your help. I still do. I always will. I need you to become part of my army. I need you to spread my videos, all the ones I've done in the past as well, to every forum where you have a presence. Because a lot of people don't know that President Obama supported al-Qaeda to overthrow Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi. They don't know that it was Qatari and Lebanese and Syrian soldiers that killed Muammar Gaddafi and not Libyan rebels. They don't know that they're doing the same thing in Syria right now.
Truth Unveiled here, and today I have so much to share with you. Let's just get right into it. I'm going to be talking about the UN and what they're doing, as well as what your lovely military is doing. Is that why the elite and those Zionists such as George Soros, is that why they're funding all of these rioters and these protesters with the whole 2016 elections, which is just one great big joke to begin with? Is that why they're doing that? Very interesting and suspicious indeed. Then it goes on to say, to fight subversive activities, there was authorization for the military to implement government-ordered movements of civilian populations at state and regional levels, the arrest of certain unidentified segments of the population, and the what? Imposition of martial law. Did you hear that? Have you looked up all the executive orders that your lovely presidents have signed into office? All of which are unconstitutional, by the way, because many of them say that your government has the so-called right to relocate you into FEMA camps or into detention centers, prison camps, come martial law, come during a state of emergency, which we've been seeing these past couple of days. Are you ready for this stuff? Are you ready to stand in that evil day? That is the question. Or are you lollygagging and thinking that this is all one big game and that this is all one big joke? I hope not. Now, what's also no surprise is how we're seeing the elite and the Zionists and how they're continuing to push for this big agenda and how they're trying to do all this stuff before Mr. Obama is supposed to leave office, because we know darn well that Mr. Obama is going nowhere. He's going to stay right where he is. The elections is just one great big sham if you already haven't figured it out. But that yes, your government and the Department of Defense and the Homeland Security, what they are doing is that not only are they funding these so-called emergency centers, courtesy FEMA and all those other alphabet soups, not only are they doing that, but they're legally trying to do these things, but they're also using them to put you into these FEMA camps, and that is exactly what they're doing. But they're establishing these draconian acts, establishing these draconian laws because they're trying to lock down the nation. Remember, problem, reaction, solution. They cause the problems by causing these riots and causing these civil disturbances that they initiate to begin with. And then as a solution to these things, then is when they bring in the military, because newsflash, Venezuela is coming to America literally, because soon enough they're going to turn off all the banks, they're going to turn off all the ATMs so that you can no longer get money, and they're going to turn off all the food so that you can no longer get food from the stores. Food is no longer going to be accessible. Water is no longer going to be accessible in America, and I wouldn't be surprised if they turn off all the electricity so that you can no longer turn on the lights at nighttime. What do you think is going to happen when people cannot get their food and drinks and water from the stores? What do you think is going to happen? There's going to be rioting, and that's exactly what the government wants. That's exactly what your military wants, because then they could use that as an excuse to lock down the nation, declare martial law, and declare civil unrest. And that is what they've been planning for. That is what they've been preparing for. That is what they're getting ready for, folks. You can see it with the Jade Helm and the UX drills. They've been vehemently pushing this stuff and preparing this stuff, as well as funding these emergency centers in case of national emergencies. Why do they keep mentioning national emergencies if everything is okay according to them? There's somebody who's lying to you, and it's time you see the truth for what it really is and what they're getting ready for, because you've been seeing very interesting and suspicious activity indeed. And now it's time to expose the evil for what it really is, because I'm here at Activist Post, and it says UN vehicles, mysterious troop movement spotted in Virginia, North Carolina, West Virginia, Ohio, and many other places. And later on in this video, I'm going to be taking you to some government documents so you can see exactly what your government and your military are vehemently pushing and what they're vehemently preparing for. Now, this was actually reported a few days ago, but as you can see, there have been many reports circulating around the uptick of U.S. military movement inside of the United States, with the recent sighting of United Nations or UN vehicles being carried on flatbed trucks is now making its rounds on the internet and alternative media networks. And these UN vehicles were spotted near I-81 near Lexington, Virginia, and were being carried by flatbed to a trailer. Now, of course, there have been many other reports of this in many other different places and many other locations at many other different times, but we're seeing an increase of the military movement as well as an uptick of the military movement. And you can see a better picture here. And yes, as you can see, somebody actually took this picture, so it's not made up, it's not photoshopped. It's time to wake up and see what's right in front of you. But the reason I'm showing you this, and the reason this is so important, is because you need to see exactly what's going on and what your lovely military are getting ready for, because they've been telling you their plans all along. They've been telling you their plans and what they're about to do for the longest now. But have you been paying attention, and have you been seeing the warning signs ahead of time? Because if not, well, then you will be taken for a loop come martial law. Because yes, when martial law is declared, the United Nations will take over, which reminds me of the movie of Amerigeddon, the movie that they do not want you to see. And if you would like to learn more about that, please watch my link below so you can see more about that. But it even says for the past day or so, military convoys have been witnessed traveling both north and south with lines of equipment ranging from Humvees and troop transport trucks and tankers to military personnel following the convoy and civilian vehicles. And yesterday I talked about more of Rex 84 and how they already have the FEMA camps armed and ready to go with police officers and officers already armed, ready to accept dissidents and prisoners. The question is, Are you ready? But it even says, interestingly enough, many of the soldiers traveling in the convoy were seen wearing helmets, an unusual procedure for a simple convoy. In addition, the convoys were carrying what appeared to be construction equipment. Why would they need to be doing that? Military convoys aren't the only thing we're seeing. Oh no, because we're also seeing more cryptic things from our government and military. And a special thanks to all of you for sending in all of your pictures and all of the very interesting and suspicious things that you all have been seeing and spotting on the road. Because this is a picture that was taken somewhere in New Jersey, and as you can see, it says Special Operations Unit Zombie Response. And not only are we seeing zombie preparedness vehicles and zombie warning signs, we're also seeing even the organizations such as the CDC are even preparing for a zombie apocalypse and even have a zombie preparedness plans on their website. And your government and your military even have zombie documents that document certain zombies. Don't believe me? Please check out my government and zombie apocalypse video below so that you can see exactly what time it is, and so that you can see that this is not a joke. Because yes, you are a sleeping zombie according to your government. You are a sleeping sheeple, and it's time to wake up out of that sleep. It's high time to wake up now so you can see exactly what time it is and what they're really getting ready for. Because when I take you to these government documents in just a second, you're gonna see that this is no joke whatsoever. This was spotted somewhere in Iowa. As you can see, here are some trucks on a flatbed, and as you can see, these trucks look to be medical response trucks. And the question is, why do they look like that, and why are they even there? And the better question is, why are we seeing an uptick with this nationwide? Why are we seeing all of these trucks and military tanks? I've also done a video describing the military tanks and going into detail with military tanks that have been seen nationwide, and we're seeing an uptick of this, and we're seeing an increase of it. And the question you should be thinking about is, why are we seeing an uptick with all this stuff? Why are we seeing this stuff everywhere, and what are they really getting ready for? What are they really preparing for? Because if you really seriously think that, oh, they're just doing this for no reason, oh, it's just fun and games, oh, they're just planning all this stuff for no reason, I seriously suggest you try again and come up with a better answer. Because right now your government and military are planning for civil unrest and chaos, and they're planning to lock down everybody and detain the entire country and put as many American dissidents or political dissidents, according to them, into FEMA camps, into prison detention centers. Do not believe me? You will after this, because even government and military documents prove that that is what they're getting ready for, and you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about in just a second. Now, I talked more about this yesterday in my video that talked about all of the state of emergencies that we've been seeing these past couple of days, especially 2 state of emergencies declared in California and West Virginia on the same day around the Brexit situation. Is that a surprise or a coincidence? I think not, because what are they getting ready for? But it's just interesting because I would like to reiterate this about Rex 84, Operation Garden Plot, and even Operation Cable Splicer, which is a test to lock down the nation, declare martial law, as well as bring in the military. And is that why we're seeing all of these military tanks everywhere? Is that why we're seeing all of these United Nations tanks on flatbeds? Is that why we're seeing all this stuff? Not to mention the Jade Helm and the UX drills. Why are we seeing all of these things? Why are we seeing the military getting ready for all of these things under martial law and conducting these drills, not only with the police and with the military, but also with law enforcement as well as firefighters too? Why are we seeing all of these things? What exactly are they getting ready for? What do they know that we don't know? Now, what you're currently looking at is a piece done by scholar Diana Reynolds, and it says, "The Rise of the National Security State, FEMA and the NSC." And I highly recommend all of you read this on your own time, because it really does give some good information. We're just going to read a snippet of this, but we're in the chapter that says military rule, and we're going to be reading from a little bit of this so that you can get a better idea of what Rex 84 really is and what your government is getting ready for, and what the Department of Defense and all those other alphabet soups are funding behind your back with your tax money. Because last I checked, taxes are unconstitutional, but oh well, the Zionists don't care because you never had rights to begin with. But let's keep going. It says this is only a test, repeat. And we've been seeing many tests from FEMA, haven't we, with all the National Emergency Alert System tests and everything? What do you think they're testing for? But let's keep going. It says, while improving capabilities to respond to civil security emergencies was for the most part a planning activity, and with the regular Reagan administration, FEMA was also active in exercises to test these plans. What plans? In 1981, FEMA and the Department of Defense, more alphabet soups, began a continuing tradition of biannual joint exercises to test civilian mobilization, civil security, emergency, and counterterrorism plans using names such as Proud Saber or Rex 82, Pre-Nest, and Rex 84, Night Train. And wow, they were planning counterterrorism before so-called terrorism even arise. What does that tell you? But let's keep going. The Rex 84 Alpha X Plan, or Readiness Exercise 1984 Exercise Plan, indicates that FEMA, in association with 34 other federal civil departments and agencies, conducted a civil readiness exercise during April 5th to 13th, 1984. It was conducted in coordination and simultaneously with the Joint Chiefs Exercise Night Train 84, a worldwide military command post exercise including continental U.S. forces, or CONUS, based on multi-emergency scenarios operating both abroad and at home. In the combined exercise Rex 84 Bravo, FEMA and DoD led the other federal agencies and departments, including the Central Intelligence Agency, or the CIA, the Secret Service, the Treasury, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or the FBI, more alphabet soups, and the Veterans Administration through a gaming exercise to test military assistance and civil defense. Did you hear that? To test military assistance and civil defense. Why would they do that? Are they turning against the American citizens? Are they turning against people, period? Of course they are. Just look at Venezuela. Let's keep going. The exercise anticipated civil disturbances, major demonstrations, and strikes that would affect continuity of government and or resource mobilization. Is that why the elite and those Zionists such as George Soros, is that why they're funding all of these rioters and these protesters with the whole 2016 elections, which is just one great big joke to begin with? Is that why they're doing that? Very interesting and suspicious indeed. Then it goes on to say, to fight subversive activities, there was authorization for the military to implement government-ordered movements of civilian populations at state and regional levels, the arrest of certain unidentified segments of the population, and the what? Imposition of martial law. Did you hear that? Have you looked up all the executive orders that your lovely presidents have signed into office? All of which are unconstitutional, by the way, because many of them say that your government has the so-called right to relocate you into FEMA camps or into detention centers, prison camps, come martial law, come during a state of emergency, which we've been seeing these past couple of days. Are you ready for this stuff? Are you ready to stand in that evil day? That is the question. Or are you lollygagging and thinking that this is all one big game and that this is all one big joke? I hope not. Now, what's also no surprise is how we're seeing the elite and the Zionists and how they're continuing to push for this big agenda and how they're trying to do all this stuff before Mr. Obama is supposed to leave office, because we know darn well that Mr. Obama is going nowhere. He's going to stay right where he is. The elections is just one great big sham if you already haven't figured it out. But it's interesting because it was reported today, actually, and I'm going to leave the link below, actually, because there was a petition that was requested for the United Nations to monitor the remaining 2016 presidential elections due to what they consider election fraud, which of course reminds us of the movie Amerigeddon, where the United Nations takes over once martial law is declared in America. Not a surprise whatsoever. And earlier I talked about more of course, the zombie apocalypse and the zombie response team. I'm going to leave the link below, Complan 8888, so you can see that yes, your government is preparing for zombie apocalypse. That is exactly what they're doing. Who are they classifying as these different zombies?
The Lord made me know that some of the guinea pigs were actually insane people who were then killed after the test run. So I don't know whether their insane status was before or after being inserted with the technological implant or both. But I saw them look like zombies or madmen. In the eyes of those who were carrying out the sample test runs, they were useless, and immediately after the test run they were literally discarded by being killed, because I was made to understand in the vision that the people studying them considered them useless, because after all they were zombie-like. One of the surveyors told me that this is a secret only known to them, as they were strictly instructed not to reveal it to the general public worldwide. The Lord thus made me know in this vision that there are people already being trial tested and experimentally observed in medical facilities regarding a technological implant, as the plan is about to be rolled out worldwide very shortly.
What are they getting ready for? But if you would like to, you could look more at the link on your own time, or you could just watch my video on zombie apocalypse and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But I'm here at the text of the National Emergency Centers Establishment Act. That was a bill introduced back in January 22nd, 2009 in the House of Representatives at the 111th Congress first session. And I've talked about this in many of my other videos, but the reason I keep bringing this up is because I want to keep reiterating it to you and keep reminding you that yes, your government and the Department of Defense and the Homeland Security, what they are doing is that not only are they funding these so-called emergency centers, courtesy FEMA and all those other alphabet soups, not only are they doing that, but they're legally trying to do these things, but they're also using them to put you into these FEMA camps, and that is exactly what they're doing. But they're establishing these draconian acts, establishing these draconian laws because they're trying to lock down the nation. Remember, problem, reaction, solution. They cause the problems by causing these riots and causing these civil disturbances that they initiate to begin with. And then as a solution to these things, then is when they bring in the military, because newsflash, Venezuela is coming to America literally, because soon enough they're going to turn off all the banks, they're going to turn off all the ATMs so that you can no longer get money, and they're going to turn off all the food so that you can no longer get food from the stores. Food is no longer going to be accessible. Water is no longer going to be accessible in America, and I wouldn't be surprised if they turn off all the electricity so that you can no longer turn on the lights at nighttime. What do you think is going to happen when people cannot get their food and drinks and water from the stores? What do you think is going to happen? There's going to be rioting, and that's exactly what the government wants. That's exactly what your military wants, because then they could use that as an excuse to lock down the nation, declare martial law, and declare civil unrest. And that is what they've been planning for. That is what they've been preparing for. That is what they're getting ready for, folks. You can see it with the Jade Helm and the UX drills. They've been vehemently pushing this stuff and preparing this stuff, as well as funding these emergency centers in case of national emergencies. Why do they keep mentioning national emergencies if everything is okay according to them? There's somebody who's lying to you, and it's time you see the truth for what it really is. Because as I have said earlier, your government and military have been putting it in front of your face what they're getting ready for. But the question is, are you paying attention? Because I'm here at an unclassified document from your lovely Army, by the way. And it even says Army Regulation 210-35 Installations Civilian Inmate Labor Program. And you may be wondering what this is. We're going to go over some of it together, and I'll leave the link below so you can read it on your own time. But basically, in a nutshell, this document not only talks about how the military and the army are using these bases and these military bases, and they're going to be converting them into prisons. But they're not just going to be converting them into prisons. Well, the question you should be thinking about is, who are these civilian inmates that they're talking about? But let's keep going. As you can see, here's the actual document. It's unclassified. It comes from the headquarters of the Department of the Army from Washington, D.C. back on January 14th of 2005. And let's keep going. It gives the summary of it. We're going to go to the next page, which talks about the program and gives the summary of it, and we'll read the summary together. And as you see, it says, this regulation provides guidance for establishing and managing civilian inmate labor programs on Army installations. It provides guidance on establishing prison camps on Army installations. It addresses record keeping and reporting incidents related to the civilian inmate labor program and or prison camp administration. And like I said earlier, who do you think these prisoners are? Who are they talking about? Are they just talking about prisoners who commit felonies? No, they are not. Not only that, but I've also gone over this in my Walmart video, and I'll definitely reiterate it right now. But what are they really doing? They're converting all of these things into FEMA camps, and they're literally converting these bases into FEMA camps. But not only are they converting the military bases into FEMA camps, they also have underground tunnels. And that's something else that I would like to really talk about more right now, because these underground tunnels will be used to transport dissidents into FEMA camps, literally. Because think about it this way, let's just say a national emergency just so happened, and then the state regulators tell you that, oh, you have to go underground in order to avoid another so-called threat. Will you take their orders? Will you listen to them? Or will you see the warning signs ahead of time? My hope is that you will see the warning signs ahead of time and see exactly what they're getting ready for, and see that they're leading you to the slaughterhouse, literally. Now here's chapter 1 of that same document, and like I said, I'll leave the link below so you can see it, but this is the introduction, and as you see, we'll go over the purpose, but it says, this regulation provides Army policy and guidance for establishing civilian inmate labor programs and civilian prison camps on Army installations. Sources of civilian inmate labor are limited to on and off post-federal corrections facilities, state and or local corrections facilities operating from on-post prison camps pursuant to leases under Section 2667, Title 10, the U.S. Code 10 U.S.C. 2667, and off-post state corrections facilities participating in the demonstration project authorized under Section 1065, Public Law, or PL 103-337. Otherwise, state and or local inmate labor from off-post corrections facilities is currently excluded from this program. Well, when you think about the terrorism agenda and why they're pushing this agenda, has it ever occurred to you why they're pushing this agenda? Have you ever wondered why they're pushing this agenda? Because you could be a terrorist if you're watching this video right now. You could be a political dissident if you're even speaking against the government or know of the New World Order, even though Mr. George H.W. Bush talked about the New World Order on TV exactly 11 years before 9/11. Is that a coincidence? But if you even know about any of this stuff, you could be deemed a political dissident from your government. You could be deemed suspicious, and you could be a suspicious terrorist, and they're going to have to detain you, and you could become a civilian inmate. This is what they're getting ready for? Is that why you're seeing everything? Is it starting to make sense now? I hope so. The report then goes on to talk about some of the responsibilities pursuant to the Assistant Secretary of the Army and how they will provide policy guidance and resolve policy issues, as well as providing overall program direction and serving as approval authority for establishing the civilian inmate labor programs and civilian inmate prison camps on Army installations. Did you hear that? And we already talked about Rex 84 and how they've already done tests and conducted tests and drills and scenarios of martial law to be declared when national emergencies take place, which is why they've even established these National Emergency Centers Acts, as we saw with HR 645. I hope it's making sense now. Now, what's also interesting about this document is chapter 4, where it talks about reporting and record keeping and how they keep records of all of the civilian inmates and how they not only keep records of them, but they report every single thing that they're doing. Kind of sounds like surveillance to me, doesn't it? Just like how your government is surveilling your every walk, your every footstep, your every move, your every breath, literally, because every step you make, every move you make, and every breath you take, your government is documenting it courtesy these fusion centers. Is the military doing the same thing through these police states? Are they doing the same thing through these military camps and these military bases that they're going to convert into detention centers? Of course, because what? Control, and world domination. That is the goal of the New World Order. Now, the Army document also talked about the different governing provisions and the procedures and the inmates who they classify and deem as the inmates, but we're also going to go over this document, and I've talked about it many of times, but I also want to reiterate it once again, but it's called FM 3-39.40, which is Internment and Resettlement Operations, that was released in February of 2010, and this is, of course, from the Department of the Army. What exactly are they getting ready for? Now, although this document is over 300 pages, I highly recommend all of you to read it on your own time, because what you're going to see is that this document not only blueprints, graphs, and charts all of the different prisons and detainees that your Army, military, and your government are preparing for, but they give out the entire map and they blueprint everything for you. It's right in front of your face. And for those of you who think this is a hoax or think that, oh, it's fake, I honestly don't know what to tell you. But I'm here at chapter 4, and it says capture, initial detention, and screening. Because what you'll find is that they have an entire system of how they want to transport and detain all of their so-called detainees and how they want to do it. They have it all mapped out, ready to go in this one document from the Army, from your lovely military. But here I am in chapter 4, and it even says methods of transportation and how they even plan on taking detainees to these prisons, which are going to go to with the military bases that they're converting into these prisons. And as you can see, they even have graphs and they even show maps of it, but They say foot, they even say wheeled vehicles, they even say buses, and they even show you the different guards that are going to be on these buses with the detainees in them in the figures. They even show you the cargo truck transport and how they're going to be transported through cargo trucks as well. Is that why we're seeing all these trucks? And they even show rails as well. Is that why people are seeing UN railways and rail cars as well? Is that what they're getting ready for? As well as helicopters as well. What are they getting ready for? You even see detainees here with guards surrounding them. What is the bigger agenda here? They even show you how they're going to be moving detainees via airplanes, because here I am at 4-61, and this shows you via movement with airplanes. And as you can see, the D right here, if you look at the actual table right here, or the legend, you see D represents detainees. So that is the detainees right here in this area. And over here is most likely going to be the guards in the airplanes as well. Why are they even showing us? Why do they even need to be showing us these things? What is the bigger agenda here? In Chapter 5 and Table 5-1, they even tell you the major functions performed from the military police and how they're going to process and restrain and control the detainee and conduct liaison with military and civilian agencies, and even transfer custody and maintain accountability of the detainee evidence and property, as well as collect biometric information like the RFID chip. Is that why we're seeing that? Why do they even mention this in this document here? Very interesting and suspicious indeed. And like I said, my sole purpose for all of this is to show you what time it really is, as well as wake you up to truth and wake you up to what time we're really living in and what your government and military are preparing for. That is the sole purpose of this. And I hope you're seeing this with both your eyes open, because here I am in Chapter 6 and we're in 6-8, which even talks about some of how they're going to plan these facilities and how they're going to use clear zones, guard towers, lights, patrol roads, sally ports, and communications. Haven't we been seeing structures that sort of look like guard towers? Very interesting. What are they going to be using them for? Now, Chapter 6 goes on to talk about many of the graphs and tables of how they're going to not only plan and stage these detainees, but where they're going to place them and all of the medical and dental support that's going to come with it, and just their plans on detaining them in these places and the facilities that they're going to be placed in according to them. And they also talk more about it as well in Chapter 5. But I wanted to turn your attention to Table 6-1, which is their 9-station internment process, which, as you can see, the first part is to search, which is done by the military police, and they're to assign each detainee an ISN to replace the DD form 2745 number. So of course they have to spy and surveil on you even more. Then they have personal hygiene, so they do allow you to shower, shave, and get haircuts. And then they go on to talk about medical evaluations. Interesting, why would they need to do that? And then personal items, they're the ones who issue the personal items. Why did they need to do that? Then it goes on to talk about administrative things, but it also even talks about biometric collection, and that they even collect fingerprints and everything else. Why would they need to do that? And even using facial recognition to digitally upload photographs into the DRS. Why would they need to be doing that? This document blueprints and highlights everything. Your Army's literally telling you what they're getting ready for, because I'm here in Appendix J, and they even show you different maps and graphs and outlines of the so-called detention camps and centers, and they even show you the double barbed wire fence, which you can see right here, and they even show you the different guard towers. Why would they even need to do that? Why would they even need to show you all of that? But Appendix H even talks about how order must be restored using the least amount of force possible, and even says that your police and law enforcement and your military can even use force and riot baton uses in times of rioting and civil unrest. Why would they even need to do that is the question. I hope you're seeing the bigger agenda. Please seek Yahuwah and his true son Yahusha, because as you can see, they've been planning this for a long time. The question is, can you see it? But this is Truth Unveiled here saying shalom.
Because I was made to understand in the vision that the people studying them considered them useless, because after all they were zombie-like.
This means that Obama and his fellow communists can seize any resource, property, or person at any time for any reason, including being able to force that person to perform assigned labor without being paid. That means what? Slavery is what that's talking about. Not only that, but you could look at some other executive orders that even talk about and say and prove and show that the government has the so-called right to remove you, to remove your family, to remove and control your house, control everything, and place you into forced relocation in the event of an emergency. And I hope you're getting that through your head. Truth Unveiled here, and today I'm going to be talking about Obama and some of the cryptic messaging that has been going on this past week, as well as share with you some of the unconstitutional executive orders that Mr. Obama has signed into office that give way for the FEMA camps and martial law, literally. So I'm here at the Blaze, and it says, Obama to Howard graduates, profound changes lie ahead for nation's economy and society. Now, Mr. Obama gave this speech on this past weekend, on this past Saturday. Now, it's unbelievable that Mr. Obama's most recent executive order may be preparing for the final false flag in America to bring in the New World Order. You can see the full executive order embedded below, and I'm going to go over it, and I'm going to go over some other executive orders that even prove this to be the case. But it says, and we're going to go to it later, the White House Transition Coordinating Council shall prepare and host interagency emergency preparedness and response exercises. Why would they need to do that if they're just transitioning out of presidencies? None of the other presidents in history had to do that, nor did they host response exercises and emergency preparedness when other previous presidents were leaving office. So why are they doing that with just Obama? That should be the question you should be thinking about. It's time to read between the lines and wake up to this stuff and ask questions, because when you start asking questions, that's when you start finding real answers. But it goes on to say, when this executive order was first released, yes, on a Friday, why Friday? Could it have something to do with the EMP? We too believe this was quite normal, as we were aware of the similar orders signed by Bush back in October 2008, soon before the November election. However, once we began researching it, we noticed one major difference compared to the one Bush signed back in 2008, and that difference was that this executive order specifically mentions that the transition team will be involved in the preparing and hosting of interagency emergency preparedness and response exercises as seen in the screenshot of the new executive order above. And we're going to go to that executive order later on. Do they know something that we don't know is the question. And we're also going to go over this executive order that Mr. Obama signed into office too, which is 13603, which talks about how the federal government can take over everything and even enslave you. And I'm not making that up. We're going to go to it later on. Why am I telling you this? Because it's time for you to wake up to what's going on around you and the cryptic, disturbing things that Mr. Obama is doing behind your back if you're not already awakened to it. But it's very disturbing and interesting and suspicious indeed, and I hope you're seeing the bigger agenda. Now, what's also interesting about this executive order is that it was signed in May of 2016, supposedly 6 and 7 months before the alleged so-called new president is supposed to take office. Well, the other executive order signed by Bush came out the month before. So why would they sign this and bring it out 6 months before the alleged new president's supposed to take office? Why would they even do that to begin with? I'm telling you, it's time to ask real cryptic questions, because I'm telling you, it goes much deeper than you think. But this is the actual executive order, and I'm at the White House website, actually, from the Office of the Press Secretary, and it says, Executive Order Facilitation of a Presidential Transition. And of course, it talks about the presidential transition and what they call for, and the sections that they call for. I'm just going to go over it briefly. Now, this section right here, section B, talks about who are the designees or the officials who are to be coordinating the transition, and you can read it on your own. I'll make sure to leave the link below. And then this is what they're to do. They're to provide guidance to executive departments and agencies and the Federal Transition Coordinator regarding preparations for the presidential transition, including succession planning and preparation of briefing materials. Okay, that doesn't sound too bad. Then it goes on to say, facilitate communication and information sharing between the transition representatives of eligible candidates and senior employees in agencies and the executive office of the president, including the provision of information relevant to facilitating the personnel aspects of a presidential transition and such other information that, in the council's judgment, is useful and appropriate as long as providing such information is not otherwise prohibited by law, and prepare and host interagency emergency preparedness and responsive exercises. Why would they need to do that is the question. And then it goes on to talk about the establishment and what they should do and their designees as well. And it goes on from there, and you can read it on your own time and what they should do. Now, like I said, why all of the preparation? What are they getting ready for is the question. Why would they put that in there anyway to begin with? I'm telling you, this goes much deeper than you think. This is way more cryptic than you think it is, and I hope you see exactly what they're getting ready for. Now, I would also like to go over another executive order that has been passed that many people do not know about, and it's called Executive Order 13603. Obama authorizes slave labor on a large scale on American soil, and I'm going to prove that to you with the actual executive order in just a minute. But I'm here at Investment Watch blog, and it talks about it, and it says slave labor force. According to Executive Order 13603, the president or the head of any federal agency that he shall designate, so aka the United Nations, can conscript persons of outstanding experience and ability without compensation in both peacetime and times of national emergency. I can hear the Obama supporters now as they will write to me and say Obama would never do that, or you're drinking from the Kool-Aid. Well, here it is. You can read it for yourself. Section 502, consultants. The head of each agency otherwise delegated functions under this order is delegated the authority of the president under section 710B and C of the Act 50 U.S.C. App 2160 B and C to employ persons of outstanding experience and ability without compensation and to employ experts, consultants, or organizations. The authority delegated by this section may not be redelegated. This means that Obama and his fellow communists can seize any resource, property, or person at any time for any reason, including being able to force that person to perform assigned labor without being paid. That means what? Slavery is what that's talking about. Not only that, but you could look at some other executive orders that even talk about and say and prove and show that the government has the so-called right to remove you, to remove your family, to remove and control your house, control everything, and place you into forced relocation in the event of an emergency. And I hope you're getting that through your head. But also Section 601 also says how the government can go in terms of making you their slave. Section 601, Secretary of Labor. The Secretary of Labor, in coordination with the Secretary of Defense and the heads of other agencies as deemed appropriate by the Secretary of Labor, shall collect and maintain data necessary to make a continuing appraisal of the nation's workforce needs for purposes of national defense. Oh, you mean collect and maintain data like the NSA? Is it making sense now? Upon request by the Director of Selective Service and in coordination with the Secretary of Defense, assist the Director of Selective Service in development of policies regulating the induction and deferment of persons for duty in the armed services. And it goes on from there. And we're going to go to the actual executive order right now. Now, here's the actual executive order from presidential documents. And as you can see, this was signed back on Thursday, March 22nd, 2012. And it says Executive Order 13603 of March 16, 2012, National Defense Resources Preparedness. Now, for some of you skeptics out there who still may say, oh, there's nothing to it. First of all, this shouldn't even be an executive order to begin with. First and second of all, executive orders are unconstitutional. No president has the right to sign it, Mr. Obama included. So why are they signing it and making this into law when they have no right to be doing it to begin with? That should be the question you should be asking yourself and wondering if you're not already wondering that. Know your rights. And for some of us out there, we never had rights to begin with. But let's keep going. It says what? The purpose, policy, and implementation of this unconstitutional executive order. Section 101, purpose. This order delegates authorities and addresses national defense resources policies and programs under the Defense Production Act of 1950 as amended the act. So do you see what your government's doing? They're constantly pushing these so-called acts and all these things through the Jewish Zionists, or the real terrorists, as I say, to do what? To put you into FEMA camps in case of an emergency, stage all these emergencies to displace you from your home. That is what they're getting ready for. Then it goes on to say Section 102, the policy, the U.S. must have an industrial and technological base capable of meeting national defense requirements and capable of contributing to the technological superiority of its national defense equipment in peacetime and in times of national emergency. What national emergency are they getting ready for? Why are they constantly talking about national emergencies in their text as well as in government documents, even though there's no national emergency, unless they're the ones preparing for the national emergency and doing the national emergency? I hope you're seeing this and not thinking this is some nut job craziness that's going on. No, they're actually doing this stuff. Now, I know I went over this last week, but this was from Obama at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And as you can see, what does he do? The two-finger salute. What does that mean? It means F you in British slang. I hope you're seeing that. That's basically what President Obama is saying and what he thinks about you and America. I hope you see what time it is. And even at the dinner, he's even talked about the end of the Republic and that it would be the last White House Correspondents' Dinner. What do you think they're getting ready for? I hope you're seeing this with both of your eyes open, because it's only a matter of time. It's only going to get worse from here. Please seek Yahuwah and his true son Yahusha, that way all may be well with you. This is Truth Unveiled here. Shalom.